A little bit about me. I've been in the industry for over 15 years assisting companies in document processing applications. A few reminders for today's webinar. Your mics have been disabled for this session. We will be answering questions and providing answers at the end of the session today. So please feel free to use the chat feature to submit your questions. Assisting me today in today's webinar will be Janet Tarzia, VP of Marketing and Communications, and John Reese, Vice President of Business Partner Development. A little bit about who we are. See, now I'm jammed up again, guys. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know why. I see that.
I'm moving and it's, there we go. A little bit, SPS Solutions is a division of Swiss Post. We're an $8.7 billion organization that operates in 28 countries. We've been named as one of the top 100 global outsourcing providers by IAOP. Some of the areas we work in with organizations of all types and sizes, assisting them with process improvements in the following segments: document management solutions, BPO, DPO solutions, mailroom services, and front-end office solution services. Who we are. Here's what some of the top consulting organizations are saying about Swiss Post. You can take some time to read that real quick. And today's agenda, what we're trying to accomplish for today to help educate you in the areas of AP automation. Challenges with paper-based processing. Why should you automate invoice processing? The benefits of automation. We'll talk a little bit about how the solution works, getting started, the ease of implementation, what you should look for in a trusted provider, and then we'll answer all of your questions. So again, please feel free to use the chat session to put your answers in, and we'll answer as many of those questions as we can at the end of the session. Also, we'll be providing, if you request, a security checklist document to look for and what to look for in a provider after the webinar session. Okay, here's what we're seeing today with challenges with paper-based processes in the areas of accounts payable. Filing and retrieving, lost invoices. How many times have you either set an invoice down on your desk and the CFO or the controller or the business owner is looking for an invoice and you're unable to find it? Or how many times during an audit process have you looked for an invoice and you can't find it for the auditors? It becomes very frustrating and challenging. So those are some of the areas, those are some of the things with paper-based processing that you will not have when you decide to automate your solution, because those documents will be accessible 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, as soon as they're in any type of accounts payable automation solution you're looking for. Manual routing of invoices. How long does it take you to go from each desk or to copy or fax or email an invoice for somebody to approve it? What the challenges are there is there's no visibility. You're managing multiple emails from multiple people saying, this is not my invoice, it's John's or it's Sally's. And then how many times as well is that, you know, you're using some of the bigger suppliers out in the industry, and they'll give you discounts on your invoices if you pay them on time. But again, because of the approval process within your organization, you're having a hard time getting those approvals, and in turn, you lose discounts on products that you're purchasing. And then as well, whose fault is it for not getting the invoice approved, or how come it's not in the system? So there's a lot of finger pointing. There's a slow approval process, and those approval processes typically, you know, through a paper-based solution that you guys are doing on a day-to-day basis, takes, you know, 60, 90 days sometimes to get things approved. Keying errors. How many times is it Bill does the keying for the electric bill one way and Sally does it another way, and then there's no conformity to the process. Duplicate payments. You know, how many times does a vendor send in an invoice multiple times? Nobody really checks or looks, and they just put the second one through approval. The approval happens, and you're paying the vendor twice for a single invoice. And then time-consuming to gather accruals. You know, how do you do that process? Do you go and grab all the invoices that you're currently working on? Do you build a spreadsheet to put that information together? And then how much time and energy does it take you at the end of the month to process and put that accrual information together, again, for your CFO, your controller, or the business manager of the department? And then compliance and audits. How long does it take you to go through and put information together for audit? So all these areas are usually monthly challenges, quarterly challenges, yearly challenges that you're faced on a day-to-day basis of managing your department. So that being said, I'd like to now pass off to Janet, who will discuss some additional challenges with paper-based processing. Janet, take it away.
Thank you, David. So as David said, my name is Janet Tarzia, and I'm Vice President of Marketing here. And with that, I'd like to share some market research that actually punctuates some of these challenges on a slightly different note. So David shared the process challenges that are faced in the day-to-day operations. And in addition to the process challenges, there are key productivity challenges. And they're highlighted here based on a study that was done by the Institute of Financial Ops. And not to read all of them, but just to read and talk about the first two. It says at $30 an hour, knowledge workers waste an average of $4,500 a year working with paper. And if you think about that, the $30 number is actually more of an average. Depending on your own position, title, tenure with the company, that number could actually be much higher. Secondly, if you look at what a typical employee spends in terms of time looking for information, it's 30 to 40% of their time searching emails and filing cabinets. And granted, some of the search technology in your email inbox has assisted, but nonetheless, it still can be quite a cumbersome process. And this research was done recently, so it was in 2014. But what this does is it really just punctuates the productivity and management challenges that are also associated with the paper-based processes. So with that, just to go one step further, another area of research that we look to for information is the Aberdeen Group, and they published an AP study on invoice management. And they researched over 180 organizations of all industry types and sizes. And what they did is they categorized organizations into three areas. The first was best-in-class organizations, as it relates to automated invoice processing. The second was their industry average, and the third was laggards. So if we look at this information, and just to start off with one key point that was highlighted in this research is the cost from receipt to approval. And you might ask yourself what you think that cost estimate is within your own organization. But what it showed was best-in-class companies are able to process invoices as low as $3.34, where if you look at the laggards who have not automated yet, they're still spending almost $17 an invoice to get that processed. In addition to that, two other areas that they shared, the first one was days to process, and the second one was discount capture. So on the days to process, best in class, 4 days, and if you look at the laggards, that's actually 4 times as long to process an invoice. Probably more important to those who are fine-tuning their expense lines, if you look at the discount capture, which can mean real dollars, especially where you have large organizations spending sizable amounts, the best in class, 90% of them are able to capture those discounts. and compared to only about 20% of the laggards. So this just helps to justify the reasons to move forward with an automation process. And then finally, the last piece I would like to share with you, also based on the Aberdeen group, is the two top driving areas that organizations are trying to address by improving their automated payables process is one, today they have a lack of visibility into invoices and AP documents, and they're trying to improve that, and then they're also aiming to drive their costs lower. So those are the two principal reasons for moving in that direction. So as we shared with you, we wanted to take you through the 8 benefits of automating this process. And right here, I'd like to share with you the 8 that we will highlight and then further punctuate as we go on through the rest of this presentation for you. Increased visibility into the document. So the perfect example is an invoice comes in, it lands on the desk of a person who might be taking vacation next week. The person goes on vacation. The invoice is either on the desk or in a file cabinet waiting to be processed, and perhaps it's urgent. Someone's trying to find it, and it can be quite the challenge. I think everybody's experienced that at one point in time or another. But with an automated process, you have complete visibility into where the document is at all times in the approval process. Secondly is, let me see if I get my next slide, the elimination of errors. By getting the information into a digital format and being viewable by other people, it can definitely assist with the elimination of errors. It can help to prevent fraud in multiple ways by having a very structured process around the payables process. In addition to increasing efficiency, as we talked about with productivity standards and how those are lower with the laggards and higher with best in class, there's definitely an opportunity to increase efficiency. And what that really means is it can help free up staff time to work on other projects and initiatives. As also mentioned, number 5 in the process is, number 6 in the process is the ability to reduce cost across the board in multiple ways. Capture discounts, which we already referenced earlier. And then what that would do, in addition, these really go hand in hand, is enhance the cash flow of your organization or your company, which is typically seen as quite a positive. So those are the 8 benefits, again, that we'll continue to go through. And now what I'd like to do is turn it over to a greater insight into how the process actually works. And with us today is John Reese, who will be sharing the process with you.
Good morning, everyone. So today we're going to talk about how it works, how automation works, and how best to look at automation within your organization and how the benefits can affect you. And really, there's an end-to-end process from capturing that invoice, processing it, and paying it. And in a lot of steps today, there's a lot of manual processes throughout that process, and you may not, get everything until the end of the process. And what we're trying to do is move it to a front end, eliminate a lot of duplicate work that's going on, capture that invoice up front, whether it comes in via email, fax, or electronic, or paper. It gets sent into the system. We extract data out of there as well, route it to the proper approvers or through a PO process to get that done so that the AP staff can view that invoice. So the first time the AP staff is a lot of times is looking at an invoice in an automated world is probably after it's already been approved, already been data captured, already been in the system. It frees up quite a bit of their time. And then it can load right into the ERP or the accounting system for them. And you also have an archive. So there's a lot of steps that can be eliminated in there. So there's a few areas to think about as you're automating it. It's really, what's my ERP? What's the best way to communicate back and forth with my accounting system? It's also a secure system that we have and built here. So we've tried to create a simple, scalable, and secure system. So we have all those controls. We go through an annual SSA E16 report, and you want to make sure that a provider would have that for you as well, because you want to make sure you have those controls built in an automated process so that your information and your data is safe and secure through that process. So, all right. So kind of, again, how it works of automation is, when's the best time to automate that process? Is it, do I, at the end of the process, take the paper invoice? Oh, let me go back one. Do I capture that invoice in a paper form throughout the process, and then at the end of the process I scan it with a copy of the check image and that to load in and archive it? Or can we move that to the front end of the process, get it captured up front, electronically capture those approvals in an automated workflow system, which saves time and money, and it can speed that process up tremendously. So typically how it works is, you're going to capture those invoices, whether it's electronically or if it's coming in paper, convert those to digital images and load that right up front. Get visibility to those invoices as soon as possible. Typically within 24 hours, a good automated tool and solution can assist and help you there. So from them, and then it's like, how do I extract the data out so that I can route that invoice out? So what off of that invoice do I need to capture? Invoice number, the invoice date, the amounts, the vendor information so that we can tie it to an active vendor within your accounting system, and then also how do I route that system out? So you'll want to be thinking about what's the information that at minimum I need to capture, and then what information throughout the process do I want people to add in to that thing besides maybe an approval. Maybe you're doing capital type of projects and you want to report on, you know, all the invoices for one particular capital project, then I might want to have a field that has capital project that can be keyed in and extracted from the system. All right. The other is you want to have someone validating and verifying data. So is the vendor name coming in and matches the PO and the receiver, invoice number, the PO numbers, the PO quantities. If you have a purchase order system, am I doing a two-way match with the invoice and the purchase order, or am I doing a three-way invoice, PO, and the receivers at that line level? And then if it comes all through and I order 100, they ship out 101, I'm okay with that. Do I want to have someone stop and review it, or is it within a tolerance I can build within an application that lets say, hey, we're okay with that, push it right on through? So there are some things. Again, the goal for automation is to help minimize touch points so that you're not having to touch 100% of the invoices, but you want to capture anything that's an exception and then have someone review and approve it or resolve any type of exceptions that are out there. So just some of the things to be thinking about as you're going out there. You're probably doing this today in a manual world. You have a purchase order, a receiving, and an invoice. You're comparing those either through paper, or you're looking at one screen for the receiving system and one screen for the PO, and then you're looking at the paper invoice. Again, how can we automate that so that automatically happens in an automated fashion, and then I only have to look at those exceptions that are out there. Typically how automation is going to work is you'll have a secure login that you're going to assign that user to specific rights and roles within an automated tool. So if I'm an approver, I can only see invoices for the marketing department if I'm in marketing. If I'm in IT, I only see IT invoices. So you can restrict that person down to only view things that they need to view. But as an accounting team member, you might be able to see everything within the system. That's up to you. The other is you want this to be accessed from anywhere. So whether it's a desktop at a workstation, or if it's a mobile, if I have some of the upper management on a trip and I get an invoice approved to take that discount, I want to be able to make sure I can capture that approval very quickly so I can still get that payment out. Doesn't matter really where they're at. They can log in via their mobile phone or an iPad and or a tablet and approve that invoice so I can kick it through and capture that discount up front. I'm now no longer having to wait or send emails back and forth. The system can automatically send out those type of approvals requests to capture those. All right. Exception processing is one big thing. Since I'm doing this front-end process of capturing things, you want to start maybe looking to be able to capture certain types of exceptions. The big one is duplicates. A lot of companies today, they send an invoice via email, and then a paper copy may come 4 or 5 days later. It gets through there, and that could cause a duplicate payment in a manual environment. Here in an automated workflow type of tool, you can actually capture that exception up front. So I can see the two duplicates. One might be in an approval queue, and one ends up in that duplicate queue. One could be paid, and one's in the duplicate queue. So in order to release it from the duplicate queue, someone needs to go in there and either keep it or they can terminate it. So you want to capture those up front so it doesn't waste the approver's time reapproving it, or, oh my God, this is a duplicate, and tossing out. Or at the end of the process, it comes into accounting, and I start keying it into my accounting system, and the accounting system comes and says, hey, this is a duplicate invoice, and then I need to go validate and check that. Or sometimes it causes duplicate payments. They put a -A or a .1 at the end of it, and then that can create a duplicate payment. Another is, what do I do with those miscellaneous type of documents that may be coming in since I'm capturing things on the front-end side? A statement, a change of address. Well, you want to have a place so that you can actually view and see that information. A lot of times people use statements to do a vendor review, so I can pull up the statement and all the invoices and kind of do a check to make sure that I've paid everything. Sometimes a statement comes in and may have a credit on it, so I need to push that through as a credit so I can take that credit and apply it within my accounting system on the next payment that goes out to that vendor. The other is missing vendors. So when an invoice comes in, maybe from a new catering company that you haven't used before, how do and it comes in and I can't tie it to an active vendor that you've built in that automation tool, well then that's going to trigger someone to go in and says, yep, that's a valid vendor. I need to go do my vendor setup, set them up in the accounting package so that that invoice can get tied to an approved vendor within the system. You can actually set up the segregation of duties. You might want to have a different person in accounting that only can set up vendors that maybe is not doing approvals or doing accounting review type of work of reviewing an invoice. So there's a lot of things to think about of when you're building that. Instead of having maybe a paper folder for those, you can actually have automated work queues built within an automated tool. All right. And typically how the system, workflow automation systems will work is the user will log in depending on their rights and roles. They'll see their invoices that they need to take action on. They can sort by different type of things. So if it's a vendor that's a discount vendor, they might want to have sort those top and approve them right then and there. Or if it's by a certain dollar amount. The other big benefit is now instead of waiting till the end of the month, typically what happens in a manual environment, end of the month, all the people are getting their invoices approved. They sit on their desk for 2 weeks or 3 weeks before it goes to accounting. Well, now they'll be out there. You have that visibility. They have that visibility to easily approve them. And if they sit longer than a few days, you might want to be able to say, hey, you have invoices sitting on your desk because you have that visibility knowing that that manager is sitting on invoices. All right. Again, with the approvals, it's very, very simple and easy. The information that was extracted from the invoice image is already out there. All they need to do is click on approve or reject. If they click on reject, they need to put a specific note in the system. The roles that you can set up for the approvers, you can either have them do the GL coding if that's how your organization does it. A lot of times in a manual world, there's a stamp code that happens, so we can build it so we can restrict them and allow them to code it right online. So that when it gets to accounting, it's already coded just like that stamp-coded paper invoice comes in today. This could be, again, accessed via a mobile device as well to capture the approval or the GL information. The beauty about the system is now I'm building a history of that invoice. So from when it starts the workflow through all of the different system checks, was it a duplicate? Do we have a valid vendor? Those type of checks, and we'll capture the approval. We'll see that system user ID of who actually approved an invoice. Great for that audit trail. So when the auditors come in and says, hey, give me these invoices, a lot of times you give them access, but then they can see and capture the exact person who approved it and kind of checking off that box on your audit trail. All right. And a lot of times with an automated tool, this day and age, everything is kind of mobilized, and you want to make sure that they work on mobile phones or mobile type of devices. Do I have to get an application for each of the phones, or do my approvers do it? Or can they just access it via their phone, via the web, and have it, the screen kind of adjust to the phone, phone web browser that they're using, whether it's an Apple or an Android. Those type of things can easily be done, and you want to do it so that they're not having to go out and download an application from the iPhone or from the App Store. How reporting typically works. The beauty about the system is now that I've captured everything up front, typically when it comes in within 24 hours of it arriving at that lockbox, that email, or coming in, I can start running reports. So this makes accruals very, very easy. There's going to be a list of assigned reports that are out there. They can choose and run an accrual report and see all the invoices that are in process that haven't been fully approved yet and put into the accounting system. So it makes running accrual across 67 locations, it just takes a few moments to run that report, and I have that list of things. Activity reports. Can I see all of the invoices that are out there that are sitting waiting for approvals? We had one company that we worked with, and their average days before accounting received an invoice was 21 days from the invoice date, because it sat on 67 different locations across 20 different states, and they didn't know until the end of the month when they all came in that last week of the month. Now the beauty of a workflow automated system is I have that visibility. I can see it, because not 75% of invoices don't come in the last week of the month. They come in throughout the month. They usually just sit on desk for a long time in a manual type of environment. So very, very easy to run the report. You can query and select your different operands. So if you want to do a vendor review, you can look at a vendor between specific dates. If you get a list of invoice numbers from an auditor, or your tax guy comes in, I want to see all these invoices, very quickly and easily to run that. You can extract both the data and also the images right out of the system of an automated system. So very easy to get the data, put it into an Excel format, and manipulate it how I want. Or if I want those images as well, I can click on Check All and print them, and now I have invoices at my fingertips, no longer to have to go search through file cabinets to pull that information up for your auditors, or if you're doing a vendor review. All right, and again, another big one that we always run into when you go from a manual to an automated is who's holding on to invoices. You probably already know that certain people, maybe it's the sales people, always hold the invoices until the last minute before they get them to you. But now you're able to track that, see that, exactly where it's sitting, and whether it's at the first approval level, the second, or the third, or if it's a manager, depending on how you set up. Very, very quick and easy to manage all of your invoices in that automated system. So it takes a lot of the day-to-day task out and allows the accounting team to be much more proactive and use their skills and their resources to bring more value to an organization. Right. The big question that we always hear is, how do we get started? We've been talking about automation for years at my company, but how do we get the process started? And really the best way to do that is kind of start and look at the analysis today. How do we actually process an invoice from the beginning of it, from when we capture that invoice? What happens? How does it get routed through either a PO approval process or a PO matching process or a regular approval process? And kind of understand, document that out, and then what happens at accounting, what happens after accounting? Do I store it in a file cabinet? Am I storing a few years on-site and a few years off-site? So once you build that analysis, then you can kind of start understanding and seeing what it really costs to process an invoice. And then you can also identify some of the bottlenecks. And so as you look at automation, then you can kind of figure out the best way to automate, reduce those, or eliminate those bottlenecks, reduce your costs, and free up time and resources. One of the things that Swiss Post we can do for you is help come in, do a complementary assessment, and look at your current process, help identify it, and look at how automation can best help your organization. All right, implementation of an automated system can be very easy. There's a kind of an implementation phase. Really with that analysis, it helps identify where the bigger bottlenecks are, where I need to spend that time. And typically you're going to go through 3 phases: a pre-implementation phase, which is really defining your requirements. What are my configuration needs? What information is important for my organization that I can get from the invoices so I can provide that to upper management? Are they asking for GL information? Are they asking for capital project information? Or is it state audit taxes? Those type of things. So understand what you need to kind of capture off invoices to provide to them to better run your organization. And then once we have those defined, then it's kind of how best to implement it and set up the configuration for the approvals. Do I have 3 approval levels today? Do I need to go to 5? Do I have 15 and I really maybe should scale back some? Those are some of the things that we can do in that implementation phase, and we can do that solution review and then the testing of it as well. Once we have everything tested out, then we can go to a go live or a production and start running all of our invoices through that new automated tool. So there's kind of 3 different phases to go through. The more time you kind of spend in some of the pre-implementation phase makes some of the other phases go a little bit faster. But again, you're going to go through it. At the end of the process, you make, I need to go make a change, and you may have to go back and make a configuration change, typically what happens within the automated process. What to look for in a provider. You want a financially sound organization. You want someone that's been around for a while and that will be around for the next years to support you. You also want expertise in automated invoice processing, of capturing of the invoices, which is very critical to an automated tool, making sure they have an automated tool that can go handle both non-purchase orders and purchase orders, and that do that matching within the system and how best you integrate back and forth with that provider. The others is making sure that your information is secure. Not necessarily just from being a cloud-based system and they have the proper controls, but do they have the proper controls with any of the paper documents or the email invoices that come in? If you have maybe some information that you want to keep secure that comes through. The other is you want to make sure that they have solutions that can be customized or configured to meet and built around your needs. Every AP department, at the end of the day, I'm getting an invoice in, I'm paying it out, but every organization needs different configuration or different kind of customization needs based on what their requirements are from the approval, from my audit type of rules as well. You want them also to be flexible, scalable, and also be able to provide references of how they've helped other type of companies that are out there. So all those things you want to kind of look for in that provider, whether it's on the capture side, the process, or even on the payment side of the thing as well. So we just kind of wanted to end with, again, the 8 benefits of automation. By automating it, I'm going to increase that visibility. By doing that, I'm going to eliminate errors because I capture the information up front. I have multiple people looking at it to make sure that we've captured things correctly. Another big thing there as well is making sure that the information is consistent. So as an invoice comes in where the invoice information is being captured the same way each time with those same business rules. So if an invoice comes in without an invoice number, what do we use? Do we use the date and dollar amount? Do we use the vendor name and dollar amount? It's up to you, but then that way it's consistently done it. So if an invoice comes in, it's not going to end up as a duplicate. It'll get caught in that work queue. Also, you want to make sure that, again, preventing fraud. A lot of times in that stamp coded, you really don't know if that signature was really that person that approving it. So now you have a documented system that can see exactly who released it from the system. Increasing efficiency, again, freeing up time and resources to do higher value added activities for your organization, whether it's reporting or working on other type of things. You free up quite a bit of that time and increase your efficiency as an AP department. That actually is going to go to reducing your costs per invoice because now I'm not focused on keying information into my accounting package, doing the PO matching. I'm looking at exceptions so I can free up quite a bit of time that's going to help reduce those costs. I'm actually going to be able to capture more discounts because if I don't have to get paid within 10 days for an Acme invoices, I can make sure that I'm capturing all those. So if it's sitting too long, I can make sure I get that proper approval and get that paid out to take advantage of that discount. And the other is to enhance cash flow. So now if I have that information, approved right away within 5 days or the best of class 4 days, then I can know when's best of what's coming up to pay out. When best do I want to go ahead and pay those out? Do I want to pay it out right now? Do I want to wait until the 30th day? Or do I know some vendors it's okay to pay at 35 days? So those are some of the things that kind of allows you to enhance that cash flow. Give your treasury saying, hey, I have $800,000 of payables coming due the next month. What, you decide when best it is to release those payments out to those vendors. So now I'll turn it back over to David, go through a few of the questions that might have come through the process. And David, back to you.
Thanks, John and Janet. Great information. I think that was very beneficial to the audience and very helpful. So as we have a little bit more time, I'd like to try to get through some of the questions that have come up on the board that you guys have provided us. And the first question is, John, can the system handle multiple accounting softwares?
Yes, we typically automated tools can work with multiple. You maybe have an accounting system, you might have a different purchasing system or a different receiving system, or all three could be different. So the beauty about an automated workflow tool is you can bring disparate information together to do that processing within the automated tool. So you can actually work with multiple accounting systems that are out there or purchasing or receiving systems.
Great. Great. Can you explain, here's the next question, can you explain how you work with your vendors to coordinate a new process like this one?
Yep, typically what we do is we work with, once we have gone through that pre-implementation and the implementation phase before we go live, sending out vendor notifications, whether those are emails, if you have email addresses for the vendors, or sending out a letter to those vendors saying, hey, here's the new way to send it in. And our preferred method would be email, or you can still do paper, those type of things. Vendors really want to move more to the email. They get to save money because they're not having to put a stamp on it, so they can save quite a bit of money as well. But we typically will send out that vendor notification letter, and we may send out a reminder one a few weeks later if they're still coming in via the old method.
Okay, here's another question. Do I need to give a vendor access to my internal system if I outsource?
No. With an automated workflow tool that are out there, we can set up a vendor portal which allows them to come and see a subset of their data within that automated tool so that they can kind of see their invoice and the status, and you can actually load payment data back in so they can see payment, eliminate, that's where my check calls. When they log in, they're only restricted to see invoices that are tied to their vendor ID within the system.
That's great. So what you're saying, John, in that area is that you got some of your biggest vendors that are calling you all day long. You could give them access to the system, and they can pretty much be able to get all the information instead of calling you directly. Is that right?
That's correct.
Nice. And then the last thing is, can the system handle line item PO matching?
Yes, it can. So as in automated tools, typically what happens, you tie the invoice to a purchase order, the PO lines would come across, the receiving lines would come across, and we can do that line item match looking at the invoice or the item description, the item quantity, and the amount. If it all matches, we'll go ahead and click on check. If it doesn't match, then the system will run a tolerance check. If it's within a tolerance, it can go right through. Or anything outside of tolerance will go to a line item resolution queue that then somebody maybe in the purchasing area, whoever needs to resolve that, then they can determine the best next steps. Do I update the PO because the quantity has changed or the price has changed? So they can actually resolve that right within the system and push it through. But no longer you have to do 100% matching. You're only going to look at maybe the 20% exceptions that you're having, whatever exception rate you have on those purchase orders and lines today.
Okay, great. And I think one more question around the vendor portal looks like, what if not all vendors jump on board? Doesn't that defeat the purpose? Now you would have two processes. Is that correct?
No, if the vendors are still sending directly into your organization, the best way, again, is to capture that and then send it into the automated workflow tool. It may delay it getting in right away within that 24 hours as it comes to you first, but there's ways that we can either have you send those directly to us, to that organization, or via email in to you. But you want them to go through the same process. That way, when the auditors come in, I don't have a manual process to audit as well as an automated tool. You want 100% of your invoices going through that automated tool from a compliance standpoint and from an audit standpoint.
Oh, great. That's great information. Thank you, John. And so the last thing is that we want to thank everybody for joining us for 8 Reasons to Automate Invoice Processing. If you have any additional questions or concerns, my contact information is below. Please feel free to contact me. Also, for all the participants today, we'll be sending out a security checklist to what to look for in a provider. So that'll be provided to all of the people that were attending today's webinar. Again, thank you very much. Everybody have a great day, and we'll speak to you soon.